You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his satanic assistant, Alex Montini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
And welcome to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And, well, yeah, it was sort of touch and go there. The weather was just, it's December here. And if anybody knows anything about, well, Canada, it's, the stereotypical, where's the snow and igloo crap, whatever.
Yeah.
There's no snow. I mean, it's what was the temperature today?
I was like 7 or 8 degrees above zero.
Yeah, and that's Celsius, right? Fahrenheit, that's I don't know what that is, Fahrenheit. I'm not good at
You're not good at
converting, no. I'm unfortunately my head's stuck in the metric system, unfortunately. I mean, well, you're conditioned like that, aren't you? I mean, here we are.
It's about 40. It's about 45 degrees Fahrenheit.
45 degrees Fahrenheit. And rain, thunder, and lightning. At times, the rain was coming down pretty hard. And, of course, there was a power outage. And it wasn't just like, the direct area. It was all over. It was a pretty large area. It was blacker than black. Darker than dark. It's insane. I mean, we take things for granted, obviously, because we're so, lucky to have electricity and everything like that. And, to see everything so dark like that is just, it's very eerie.
Mm-hmm.
Not
reminds
only
me of that year where we had the massive blackout.
Yeah, that was, and how long did that lasted for quite a while.
It lasted for at least a day or two, and then they had rolling blackouts until they were able to repair all of the damage, I guess.
And we're talking, and this was huge. I mean, it was massive.
Yeah, it was
the area,
a chunk of southern Ontario and the States,
and into western New York, and even into Ohio, because I believe things started in Ohio somewhere, didn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
One of the major transformers or something like that. I don't know exactly what happened. I can't remember, but it went down, and well, let's just say a lot of people were without power, like hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions. What am I saying? Millions.
Yeah, millions.
Millions of people were without power for, a good 24 hours or more. It was just insane. And, it's funny because, I mean, what was it, like 3 years after 9/11?
Yeah.
It was 2014, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
It was in the summer, August 4th or 5th or something like that.
Yep.
And I remember because you know, the conspiracies were flying because, you know, at that point it was still only 3 years after 9/11. People were going, well, you know, I heard Al Qaeda drove a van into the power station or something like that. You know, there's all sorts of speculations that, you know, that it was terrorism and all that kind of stuff. And people were on edge, thinking that, oh my God, this is part 2, you know, from, you know, the continuation of what happened, you know, at the World Trade Center and stuff like that. No, that wasn't it. It was the power grid. It was just absolutely shot. And I don't know if they've really done too much. I'm sure they have done some things to upgrade it and change how it is. And I do believe a lot of we don't rely so much anymore on the power coming up from the States, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I don't know if we rely on it as much as we used to back then. I think they sort of generate a lot of it back here. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that, but whatever. So what's new, Alex?
Nothing. I have a cold, actually.
You have a cold that you can't see, because I mean, you and I last Sunday we didn't broadcast last Sunday. Because we went to the Royal Cinema and we saw the world premiere of Jesse Cook's The Horde.
Yes.
So what did you think of it?
I thought it was hilarious.
Wasn't it fucking hilarious?
It was funny as hell. Yeah,
it was. Like I knew there was a bit of humor, and if anybody knows his films, humor is sparse. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, there is a little bit of humor, slight humor here and there, black humor here and there, but nothing like what was in this. There was just like an all-out assault on humor. Mm-hmm. You know, some of the scenes. I mean, one scene that you can sort of you keep going back to and remembering, and it probably made you. You know, you like the most, I guess. What you favorite the most out of the whole thing?
Well, I think it was that freaky guy in the bed when he just started getting up and going crazy.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy, and of course the toilet.
Just the concept itself was hilarious.
Well, yeah, I mean, for those who don't know anything about the Horde is something I did some work on. I did some consulting, and they used some of my equipment for the movie, for the shoot. But the movie itself is sort of a mixture between ghost hunters, you know, the reality paranormal TV shows, and mixing it up with the horde, you know, extreme hoarder shows, you know. And it deals with one man in particular who owns 4 properties, well 5, one secretly, and he just buys these properties, and the only reason why is he'll buy a property is he uses it for storage, you know. So he just basically, you know, fills the property up with junk, and not necessarily junk, but some interesting items. But yeah, the one scene, the toilet scene.
Oh yeah. I can't forget that one.
That was hilarious. I mean, if you have a chance, check it out. I mean, it probably won't have a wide release, unfortunately. But if there's a festival in your area, check it out. Because I'm pretty sure he will be doing the festival circuit with this. I'm almost certain he's going to probably, because he's got a couple new films. This one, and I can't remember Dead something. I can't remember the title of the other film that he had playing, and I really wanted to see that. Unfortunately, wasn't able to, but it looked pretty interesting as well. But not in a humorous way, because obviously this was more drawn out horror. So what he's used to directing and writing and all that kind of stuff. The co-writer of the film is Tony Burgess. Some people probably will know the movie Pontypool. He wrote that, the screenplay for that, the script for that. I know a lot of horror movie buffs out there are familiar with Pontypool. Somewhat well, not famous, but well known within the horror genre buffs community circuit, whatever, and Tony actually stars in this as well as Ray Barrett, Rye Barrett, sorry, who's been in a few movies. Anyways, that's why we didn't broadcast last Sunday night, simply because we were at the premiere of that. We were down at the what the hell?
Royal.
Yeah, Royal. But what's the name of the Blood in the Snow
Blood
festival?
in the Snow, yeah.
I'm like, what's the name of the festival again? Blood in the Snow Festival, which is every year in TO. So that was pretty cool to check that out. Tonight we are going to start our dark discussion series. We've been doing this for a while actually. And tonight, we were hoping to have a few people on, but unfortunately, scheduling wouldn't allow that. But we do have a good friend and returning guest, Gareth, who's definitely well known to guys on this. People who listen to the show know the Mindset podcast. It's been great to have him on in the past, and I'm certainly looking forward to having Gareth Davies on again this evening. We'll bring him in after our first break here. So again, you guys know how it goes with the dark discussions. We do have topics, but I mean, they tend to veer off into the dark corners, and that's why, thus the dark discussions. And it's like essentially raw. I mean, I hate editing. I hate censorship. You like to let these things flow, right? I mean, I think some of the best perspectives, some of the best discussions come out of just letting it flow, let it go where it's going to go and just go with the flow with it, Some of our past discussions have been really good because of that, so we always look forward to doing this. We're going to take a break here. Of course, if you'd like to follow us on Twitter, it's at Dark Discussions. Facebook, it's www.facebook.com/Nocturnal Frequency Radio. BBM, Nocturnal Frequency Radio, of course.
Yep.
And Instagram. It's been pretty quiet at Instagram. I wonder why.
It kicked me out for some reason. I can't log into it anymore.
Oh, you know why? It's probably because I had to reset it, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that was probably what it is. Because I think, you know what it was? I probably screwed up because I forgot the password. Because I got a new phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't, I guess, get into it. And I don't know. Sorry, man.
That's all right.
I mean, will you forgive me?
I don't know. I'll try.
Really? So,
yeah.
Before we go, what do you think of that burrito place?
Not as good as Big Fat Burrito.
No, not even close.
No.
It was too dry.
It definitely was too dry.
Not enough sauce.
Gotta love the sauce, man.
That's what makes a burrito. The sauce. Oh, come on, Alex.
What?
You don't agree?
The sauce is what makes the burrito. Yes, I agree.
Okay, cool. So anyways, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to bring in Gareth Davies of the Mindset Podcast. I'm sure many of you remember Gareth. If you don't, we'll have
Shame on you.
Shame on you, and we'll have to send Frankie after your ass.
That's right.
Where is Frankie these days?
He's hiding, man.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, we're going to take a short break. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live, extremely exclusively here on the New Visions Radio Network. And, just a little pointer. Gareth and Redmond, who's in chat there, who's listening. This first song is from a group called Fumarole, and the title is called Time Lord. And you'll recognize the start of it. Anyhow, enjoy. We'll be right back.
Nothing.
What's new and exciting, Alex?
Nothing.
Well, what's new?
Well, nothing.
What have you been up to?
Not much.
What's new?
Nothing.
What have you been up to?
Nothing.
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And as we mentioned in the first little bit, that we're having a dark discussions. And, I'm not going to waste any time. Gareth, welcome to the show again.
Hey, guys, great to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
It's always great to have you on. What's the proper wording for this? Is it like... Well, you're definitely a regular on the show. There's no doubt about that. You've been on a few times.
Yeah, it seems that way, which is not a bad thing. I enjoy coming out and talking to you guys.
Yeah, it's almost like you're like a co-host almost. the co-host on the West Coast there.
That's right, the Nocturnal Frequency reporter from the West Coast.
Yeah,
call Kolchak on the case.
So what's new and exciting?
What's new and exciting for me right now? There's something that's going to be going on tomorrow night that I am chomping at the bit to go to. It's the worldwide premiere of Bob Lazar, Area 51, and Flying Saucers. The new documentary by Jeremy Corbell is going to be released tomorrow. Exclusive premiere here in Los Angeles, and I, ladies and gentlemen, will be attending, and I can't wait.
I'd love to see that, but you know what? I'm reserved. I mean, what do you think about Bob Lazar?
I mean, I let's be controversial, man. I think he's legit, dude. I think
he's legit?
Absolutely, man. I do not think this guy is bullshitting. Not even close.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, he's had his fair share of people, doubters, if you will, and people that say he's full of crap and all that kind of stuff. But
Absolutely.
I mean, he's always fascinated me. Every time he's been on Coast to Coast, obviously, and several other shows. But I mean, he's an interesting character, and a lot of the stuff he talks about is it's fascinating.
Oh, big time, man. I mean, I've been aware of him since the early '90s when the story first broke. Mm-hmm. When he went public in 1989, and then in 1992, he essentially gave the middle finger to the ufological community and dropped off the planet, and that was the end of Bob Lazar, or so we thought. Yeah. Until about 3 years ago, Jeremy Corbell, the investigative filmmaker, hooked up with George Knapp and started hounding him for an interview, and that interview blossomed into a full-fledged documentary, which will be released tomorrow, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I was looking that over, like you posted it, and I checked out the trailer, and I'm like, Jesus, I want to see this.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Why can't I be down there to check this? Hop on a flight. Yeah, I'd love to.
A few years too. Great.
You're going to have to take a few days off work. Oh, work? What's that? No, screw you. I won't be in.
So tomorrow night, I'm super excited not only to see the movie, but the movie is going to be hosted by Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, and Bob Lazar. So I get to see the guy in the flesh, which is something I'm very, very much looking forward to. I think the event is sold out already. Mm-hmm. For tomorrow night, but the movie itself will go live on iTunes and Vimeo and all streaming platforms at midnight tomorrow night, I believe. So even if you guys can't get to LA to see the premiere, you should be able to stream it or download it without too many problems on Tuesday sometime.
Well, I definitely will be checking that out. That's a given. Alex, do you know much about Bob Lazar?
I've heard the name, but I haven't really followed him.
Do you just want to throw it a little bit out there, Gareth?
Sure. Yeah, more than happy to. So, 1989, Bob Lazar came forward to George Knapp, who was a news reporter in Las Vegas, claiming that he worked at a military facility called S4, which was just outside of Area 51, and he was contracted there as a physicist to back engineer alien spacecraft. What he said was that the United States government had 9 alien spacecraft in their possession, and they had 22 scientists working on these craft, trying to figure out how they worked. That's essentially it.
Yeah, and it's back engineering. Come on, like.
Yeah,
and obviously that's the stickler with a lot of people. Prove it. Even if the guy could prove it, there's just so many people that would doubt.
Sure, of course. I mean, how do you define proof? I mean,
well, yeah.
What could be sufficient for me for somebody else is not nearly enough, and vice versa. I believe him. I think he is legitimately telling a true story for a number of reasons. Number one, when he came out, he came out and went public basically to save his life. He felt physically threatened by the government, and his only recourse to keep him breathing was to go public with the story.
It was coast to coast, right? That he went public first, right?
No. It was at a local news station in Las Vegas that George Knapp worked at. That's when they broadcast it. He came out first of all, and he did not. He said he'll tell you the story. He wanted his voice altered, and he wanted to be like the silhouette. And he came out and he called himself Dennis, and then eventually he came forward and revealed who he actually was and told the story. Now, I understand that for the uninitiated, or for people hearing this for the first time, when you're going to say something like, the government has 9 extraterrestrial spacecraft that, almost 30 years ago, a team of engineers were trying to back engineer and figure out how they worked, that sounds insane. It sounds nonsense. You're out of your mind. This is crazy. But it's only because you're looking at it through the view of somebody who hasn't looked at the subject. So you dismiss it immediately, right? If somebody says something, it's only natural. It's very human to dismiss it without having done the research and given it the thought and looked into it, and then making a valued decision as to whether or not it's real. But a lot of people, you'll instinctively dismiss it. Now, I know that you guys are avid ghost aficionados, right? You go ghost hunting and the like, and I'm sure you've run into this too. Even though without a shadow of a doubt, paranormal phenomena is real.
Oh, absolutely.
When you bring it up to somebody and you mention that, I've done this or whatever, and I've seen this and I know it's real, they will look at you like you're a mental case. Right? Oh
yeah. I hope you're not. I hope you don't think I'm crazy.
But even though it's real, and it's the same situation with Lazar and UFOs in general. It's the exact same scenario.
Alex, do you think we're crazy?
Halfway there.
Halfway. He's always fascinated me with what he was saying and claiming and all that kind of stuff. And I think equally as fascinating, because here's a guy right in the thick of things. Because, I always remember and obviously we now know that it was just bullshit, but when it was going down at the time, you're like, wow, this is phenomenal. I love this. And that was the famous Area 51 caller on Art Bell. On Coast to Coast, right? And you're listening. I remember listening to that live and going, wow, this is awesome.
Uh-huh.
Is this guy real? Like, for real? Like, oh, come on. This is his life's in danger, and he doesn't have much time, and he's trying to tell Art, the full details, and all of a sudden, bang, he's gone.
Yeah.
But you're going. At the time when Bob was going, obviously, public with all this stuff, and you kind of have the same sort of sense. Is this guy real? Like, I mean, it's easy enough for somebody to claim that they worked,
sure,
at Area 51 or Roswell or whatever, however you want to play it out, right?
Yeah,
but
course.
I mean, how do you back it up? And he was able to back it up, right?
He was, to a certain extent.
Okay.
And I think that when you watch the movie, I think you'll understand fully the full story of what was going on there. I mean, I can give a very kind of overview, but the devil's in the details, as they say. The details of what really went on is astounding. And I'd offer a challenge that anyone with an open mind to watch the documentary, and at the end of it, if at the end of the movie you sit down and say, "Yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit. He's mental," I really, really doubt that you would come to that conclusion. If you're if you're open minded and you don't enter into the movie with that point of view, if you're open minded and you watch it, I think you'll come away with a general feeling that this guy is legit.
Yeah, it's fascinating. The whole deal is fascinating, and I definitely look forward to finally seeing it. But like I said, it'd be cool to be there, live, in person, and seeing this unfolding. But hey, that's the way it goes, right?
I can't wait. I mean,
I bet.
It's ridiculous. I'm counting the minutes. It's like tomorrow's Christmas or something. It's mental.
So would you say that your I guess your top when it comes to the paranormal, the supernatural, all that kind of stuff? Ufology is that something that tops your list of what you seem to be intrigued with?
Well, yes, and let's do the top 10 of paranormal topics right here. The way it kind of plays out for me is because my focus changes or has changed over the years. Mm-hmm. As a child, I was very much into ghosts.
Yeah.
Then ghosts kind of morphed into UFOs, and UFOs stuck with me for many, many years. Then UFOs kind of morphed back and then into conspiracies and hidden agendas. And then that kind of played back into ghosts. And then that played into the nature of reality, which in turn played back into UFOs and conspiracy. If that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, it makes perfect sense because
it's like a full circle.
Yeah, it's like a full circus.
But and my focus will flip flop. It'll be in that realm that I just mentioned, but it'll move from subject to subject. I find them all fascinating. I'm deeply interested in all that stuff. But my focus will shift depending on my mood or whatever sparks my interest in whatever. I was very much into the Bob Lazar story when it happened in the late 80s, early 90s. And then when he drifted away, I kind of drifted away. And now that he's coming back, it's kind of pulling me back into that topic from way back when.
No, not again.
I got to get out.
Yeah, I can never escape the grasps of Bob Lazar. Okay, so, I recently have been listening to, because you're back. Yeah, the Mindset podcast is back, and so on and so on. And I listened to the EVP show that you did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, fascinating, and it's really cool. I really like the EVPs that you had going there and all that kind of stuff, and the discussion and trying to figure out exactly, what the hell is going on EVPs, and
a little secret.
Yeah, it's interesting. We could sort of, like a lot of things, just twist your brains around it until they're like totally numb and trying to figure out exactly what the hell's going on. It's just,
it is.
It is. I think a lot of it has to do with the area in itself. Here you have the ability, anyone can do it, to capture something that just seems so, capturing your first EVP, you're like in total disbelief. Like, wow, what? Oh my God! Do I? Go ahead.
The EVP show that I did with my friend Reeves, we published it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
The secret is, and you hear it here first, folks, is that we recorded that show last year. In 2017. We actually recorded that show before I did the EVP show with you guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it was languishing on my hard drive, and I thought, what the hell?
Do it.
Let's throw it out there. And even though it was a good show, and I did enjoy doing it, I thought the quality of EVP was far superior on your show to the one that Reeves and I presented. Mainly because not only did you guys have some great EVPs, but they weren't second or third hand. It was EVPs that you had recorded yourself, which adds a whole new level of mind-bogglingly authenticity to the EVPs.
Well, to add to that, just to let you know, since that, we did an investigation, and Alex has been at this particular location, the Spruce Lane Farmhouse, and we were there. Unfortunately, Alex, you weren't there that night.
Yeah.
But the last time we were there, Gareth, I must have not just myself, but a few of the other guys. Dr. Demon Gord, it was the other one. Dr. Demon Gord. If you're listening, Dr. Demon Gord, you've been mentioned. The EVPs that came out of that evening are just incredibly mind-blowing.
Oh man, I want to hear these, dude.
Yeah, well, I've been sort of debating, do we have, for the second part of the Dark Discussions, an open EVP sort of form on and playing them. I don't know. They've all been scrutinized to here and back, to hell and back or whatever. However, they've been through the ringer, and I've been, and you've heard a lot of the EVPs that I've captured and collected over the years that I've been investigating and researching and all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, Gareth, some of these EVPs that we captured that one night alone have just blown my mind away.
Oh man, you got me. I'm hanging on every word. How can I listen to this? So why are you telling me this, man?
Well, it's a teaser. It's a teaser, but I can send them your way if you want to hear them. That's fine. I'm always open to hearing your perspective and what you think of them. And somebody in chat right now, Mars, who's a part of the group, she was there that evening as well. It was a very, very intriguing evening, and a lot of weird stuff went down. But the EVPs, yes, Gareth, are just some of the best I've heard.
Class A.
Very, very, very clean. Some of them are very, they're very low, but the thing is, when you bring them up, with not editing, just propping them up volume-wise, are just phenomenal.
Now, the EVPs themselves, are they in response to specific questions or requests that you guys are making? Or
two of them are. Two of the EVPs are almost a direct response, or in relation to what might have been going on at the time of that particular moment. There was one point, and I don't want to dwell too much on it right now, but there was one point when we were in the Dr. Demon Gord was in the attic with Mars, who's in chat again. They were up there, and they were sort of getting a sense of something, and they were actually seeing something.
Wow.
They were seeing something unfold, and they could not really explain other than that it just seemed like a shadowy figure sort of thing, like almost the size of a child, like a small child, sort of fooling around up there with them. And at that time that was going on, I had an H2 or an H4 recorder up there, which if anybody knows anything about H4 recorders, it records in 360.
Right.
And this thing picked up something that just, when I listen to it, it just brings shivers to my spine.
Oh boy.
It's this, Steve. You have a spine.
Yeah. but that's the thing, and even when you're not there, you weren't there during it. When you listen to it, it just gives you shivers, because you're like, wow, I hear that. It's
because you're literally experiencing the unexplained, right?
Yes.
You're experiencing something that absolutely is real.
Yes.
But there's no real explanation as to what or how it exists, or what's causing it. Exactly.
And I mean, this place, never anything malevolent or anything like that. It never is.
Yeah.
It's always very subtle, but for some reason, there are, like I said, I've been doing research in this place since 2009, and we've been there countless amount of times. We've worked with the curator of it's now a museum. It's pretty essentially it's a museum that you go into this house, and it's just like a window in what it was like to live during the turn of the century, meaning the 1800s are rolling into the 1900s. Yeah. And what it was like to live in a farmhouse in that period of time, right? So it's a window into the past.
It's weird you said the turn of the century has a new meaning now. Turn of the century is like the 1990s now. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's scary, isn't it? Oh my god.
That doesn't make me feel old at all.
No, not at all.
It's weird, man.
But Alex, give Gareth your feeling of the house. I mean, you were in the house. What do you think of the house? And obviously, you had a little bit of an issue when you were in the house.
Yeah. Well, so when I went there for that investigation, much like today, I was feeling a bit under the weather. Had a cold going on and whatnot, but it was fine. We get to the location, and after a little bit of walking around, I started feeling worse and worse that night. And I just attributed it initially to just me getting worse in general, as getting sicker. And I just had to basically sit down at the foot of the stairs and just sort of wait out the investigation. I couldn't really do much throughout the whole night there. And then the funny thing is when we left the house and we went back outside, a few minutes later, I started feeling better again, almost like I was before I entered the house. So that was kind of curious how that whole transpired that night.
It was as if the house was affecting you in some way.
It most certainly was, because, like I said, as soon as we stepped out of the house when we were done for the night, I felt a lot better than I did while I was inside.
Wow.
And this last evening that we were referring to earlier with all the EVPs, and I have to emphasize here, Dr. Demon Gord.
Careful, you say his name too many times, you'll appear.
I know. Don't be surprised. He was having issues in that very same spot. Without even I don't think he even knew about Alex's little issue, did he?
Well, he was there that night.
He was there. Yeah. But anyhow, he was having an issue around that same area for some odd reason. I don't know why. But like I said, Gareth, some of the EVPs from that evening are just like they bring shivers to your spine.
Did you have any other experiences other than EVPs?
Not that, that particular night, like I said, a couple of the guys, they were having sort of something going on up in the attic when they were up there, when I captured the one EVP. But a lot has unfolded in that house over the years that we've done that. I've personally had a few things happen in that house while I've been there. And, people know me, I'm very skeptical, and I really try to recreate stuff that does happen that I can't explain. In one particular incident, I was in the front parlor room, and back then people didn't have a lot of money. They had their funerals, they had them in the parlor room of the house. And anyhow, I was sitting down in that parlor room by myself, had a recorder going, and I sat down and said, you know what, I'm just going to start asking questions and sort of talk away and see if I get some sort of responses. And I just had this, and I never claimed to be psychic. I'm not psychic. I'm, as I say all the time, psychic dumb as they come. But that particular moment, I started feeling like as if there was, children in the room, in the area, in the direct area, and I don't know why. It just felt like maybe there was children there. So then I started to start gearing my questioning towards children. Saying, back then they weren't allowed in the parlor room. It was only for adults. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. You should be, are you playing hide and go seek? What are you doing? Just asking little questions and trying to sort of spark a response. And, I was going on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, there was a little tug on my, the sleeve of my, my t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, at first I'm going, okay, what just happened? Okay. And this was August, I believe. It was very, it's very stagnant. The windows aren't open in the house. It's very, very stagnant. There's no wind or anything like that would cause something to tug my shirt the way it did. So I immediately said, okay, guys, let's review the DVR footage. We had the DVR cameras going at the time, and I was listening to the audio taken from that period. And listening to the audio, you can hear a few things, and one in particular, you could hear what sounded like a female. And just imagine maybe somebody in a bed or somebody who's very sick, and they're trying to formulate some words, but they can't. They can't drudge up enough energy to talk. So it's like, sort of like that.
That sounds like that's worse, though, man. If you're not getting like a real message, but you're getting some kind of
it's like they're trying to say something, but they can't. Yeah. It's not coming through. And then not too much, further after that, you could hear what sound like, a couple of like children, girls calling for their mother.
Wow.
It was, there was another time in the house where we were all upstairs. I said, okay, let's turn all the lights off and do an EVP session and just sort of listen to the house. Listen to the energy of the house. Listen to the cracks. Listen to, the natural environment and try to get a just for it. And as we were doing that, in the back, there's a long hallway, and at the very back of the hallway, in the back of the house, there's a window, and there's a room, the servants' quarters in the back room there, and all of a sudden you could see the figure of something peering out and looking at us. And I'm like, okay, am I seeing things here? And I go to one of the guys, I go, are you seeing this? Am I going crazy here? And he said, yeah, I see exactly what you're seeing. I see a figure peering out from the room.
So you just said something there, which made a thought popped into my head, and I was wondering if you guys are familiar or if you've even seen the documentary Sir No Face.
It sounds familiar, but no, I have not seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
So there was a huge publicity campaign for this movie, which obviously hooked me because I bought the stupid thing. It was happened in Australia, and the claim was that it's the greatest piece of photographic evidence of the reality of the paranormal. Mm-hmm. And they really hyped it. They had this footage of a full form apparition that was 100% legit. And it was not some shadow or some faded, like you can't really make it out. It's like a legit, you can totally make it out. And it's like an hour and a half documentary, and the actual footage is like maybe a minute. So it's padded out a little bit. But the footage itself is I found it kind of impressive, if it's real. I think that it is real, but obviously I don't know. I'm not a video expert. It might be fake. It certainly could be fake, but I think it's real.
I think there was one other time that you mentioned this when you were on the show before. I think that was one of the things that you said you got to check out. I'm almost certain.
It's available online, and there's a ghost group in Australia. I forget the name of them, and they go out and they do investigations. And there's a building on an island just off the coast of Sydney or something. Maybe I'm totally messing up the names here. I don't remember. But anyway, it's a deserted building, and they went and they got permission from the local government to go and set up and do a vigil there. Mm-hmm. They set up cameras and lots of strange things were happening. EVPs, things moving, lights flickering. But there was one room where they set up a camera, and then they left. They all went. And the next morning when they checked the footage, you clearly see, and it's not like, well, maybe, or it's a shadow. No. You clearly see a figure walk around the corner of a doorway and stick its head in and look into the room. Mm. And it's very unnerving. It's if it's a fake, it's done very well.
Yeah. And that's the problem. I mean, in this day and age with the technology, obviously, sure, and the ability to do that kind of stuff, it's increasingly harder to prove because of all this fakery.
Yeah, in the past 30 years, it's become almost impossible, especially in terms of as we talked about Bob Lazar, we're talking about UFOs and flying saucer sightings, which do occur, by the thousands every day, mm-hmm, and is videoed on people's phones every day, mm-hmm, but you can't tell what's real and what's not. It's very, very difficult. Technology is advanced to a point right now where it's almost impossible to go in and see what's real and what's not. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, it was trivial, because it was all done analog. It was all done with film and airbrushing and, photographing models and double exposures and things like that. So you could go in and you could figure it out. Today, it's not that easy.
No, not at all. It's scary about stuff that looks incredibly real, and you want to believe it's real.
Sure. Yeah,
but deep down inside it's been edited, or it's been whatever, CGI, whatever you want to call.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
But I would definitely recommend. 'Cause I know that you guys are heavily into this stuff, and I think you'd get a kick out of Sir No Face. I think you'd enjoy it, because it's one of those movies. It's right up your alley.
Yeah, definitely check it out. Definitely. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to continue along the lines with our dark discussions. Thank you again, Gareth, for joining us this evening.
No worries. Anytime.
Guys, so don't go anywhere. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. We'll be right back with more dark discussions. And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And this evening we've got our good friend Gareth Davies from the Mindset Podcast joining us this evening for our dark discussions. Sort of going back to what we were talking about. We were talking about the whole EVP thing and all that, and one thing that's always fascinated me with it's not necessarily just with the paranormal, but in several I guess avenues of society, and how much it plays a major factor and role in influence, and that's pareidolia. Or the power of suggestion, if you will. You say one thing, even being so slight, and how powerful that slightness can be on another person, and influencing their way of looking at something. And obviously with Facebook, it's not necessarily just pareidolia, but the power of suggestion.
Right. So pareidolia is where you see like faces and shapes and stuff in things. Like you look at the cloud, and the cloud looks like a dog or something, or stuff like that.
Yes.
And this relates to the paranormal, where it's used by skeptics to kind of explain away experiences. I saw this ghostly face looking at. No, that was a reflection of the light on the wall from the lamp.
Yeah.
And it just looked like a face.
Exactly.
And they use it to explain away stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's legit, and sometimes it ain't.
A lot of times it's really reaching.
Right. Because pareidolia is, where do you draw the line between seeing a face on something and it actually being a face? In other words, if I walk into a modern museum and I look at this wonderful piece of art and I see a human face in it, am I seeing a human face, or am I seeing pareidolia?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the... Yeah, exactly. I think...
Where is the line drawn?
You know what? When it comes to the paranormal, if you will, who's going to draw the line anyways? Mm-hmm. Who's going to draw that line? Who's going to set that line, that bar or standard?
Yeah.
That's
because it can go both ways. You can look at it both ways, right? It's like the face on Mars. Well, that's pareidolia. A work of art. Is that pareidolia? Am I seeing a human face in a painting because there's really a face there, or am I just seeing it?
And the likeness of a photograph taken. You look at, example-wise. Somebody takes a photograph, uses a flash. The flash, or maybe some sort of, some lighting that might be in the area is reflecting off a window, we'll say window.
Right.
And when people examine the photo and say, wow, do you see what I see?
Mm-hmm.
I see a human face, or I see a demonic entity.
Yeah.
And this is all just in the reflection on the wall, or sorry, on the window or whatnot.
Uh-huh.
And this is a common occurrence. I mean, there are people who snap pictures front, left, and center.
Sure, of course.
And will say, "Hey, look what I see," and automatically, when you tell a person, and this is another aspect of it, when you tell that person, "Look, I see this. I see this. Do you see it?" So obviously, when a person looks at it, they're either going to say, "No, I don't see it," or "Yeah, no." But when they say no, I guess the filters aren't totally on, or whatever, or they're on, or whatever. I don't know, but it's just not photographs. I mean, we're talking about audio as well. I mean, prime example, EVPs.
It has to do with context, right?
Yeah.
It completely, pareidolia can go either way.
Yeah.
But it has to do with context of the situation and your worldview.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, exactly.
How you perceive reality is going to influence pareidolia for you. For example, the face on Mars. Yeah. If you're open to the idea that there was an extremely ancient race on Mars that built pyramids and structures, then the face on Mars that clearly looks like a face is not a stretch. But if you think that's all a bunch of bullshit and there's never been any life on Mars and it's just a bunch of rocks, then that bunch of rocks that looks like a face is pareidolia.
True. Very true. Very, very true. And it's and again, that's what makes this very tough. I mean, there is really no definitive answer on yes or no. It's presenting something that science can't prove, so it has no standing in saying it's not true because it can't prove it.
There is no definitive answer on whether pareidolia is true or false.
Yeah.
Except unless you're a skeptic trying to disprove something, then it's true.
A skeptic or a diehard debunker.
Right, because you'll show them a ghost photo or a photo of whatever, or you'll explain, and they'll say, "Oh, well, that's obviously pareidolia because of this, this, and this." And when they say that, the vast majority of the people listening to that interview or watching that TV show where the skeptic is saying this are immediately going to be like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense to me. Okay, I got it," because they're eager to accept that because that does not fuck with their worldview. That does not challenge their perceptions of reality. That does not force them to think. And as long as they don't have to think or mess with their worldview, they're quite happy to accept it was just a shadow.
I've got a picture, and in that picture, I have a horned demon.
Okay.
And in that picture, with that horned demon, I have proof of the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
Then what in regard to Mr. and Mrs. Joe Average just tuning in on a Sunday evening and listening to a radio show?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, for them, they're going to instantly dismiss what you're saying without giving it a second's thought. And if an open quotes authority figure, close quotes, comes on the scene and says, well, that's Pareidolia, they're going to immediately buy it, pat themselves on the back, turn on the sports game, crack open a beer, and move on to the next phase of their mind-numbingly boring lives.
Alex, what do you do when somebody comes up to you and says that? I mean, look at, I've got this picture. Do you see what I'm seeing?
Well, I'll tell them what I see.
Okay, but I mean, if there's something there, if somebody's like, "Oh, boy, I've got a horned demon," and you're going, "Well, look it, I can see it, but I don't really see it. I can't really definitively say, yeah."
Well, the first thing that's got to happen is that if you show someone the picture of a horned demon.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing they've got to be open to the fact or the idea that horned demons exist. Because if they're not open to that fact, they will dismiss that photograph immediately.
But on a technical level, I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, the first thing that I do when somebody, and I get a lot of photos. People send me photos and say, "Hey, look, what do you think of this?" And not all of them I will shoot down. There are some really, really intriguing photos, and you sit there and go, "Yeah, that's quite possible." Yeah, but I mean, but
it's because you're open to it.
Well, yeah, but not only that, you sit there and you think, "Okay, look it, I was not there when this picture was taken, so I haven't got a clue about the environment." But can you provide me with maybe a photo before this? Or a photo after, or a few photos that were taken at the same time, so I can sort of get a gist of the area and look at, maybe this is possibly something just environmental.
Well, you have to. What always adds credence to this is if there are witnesses. Right? Well,
yeah. But I mean, at the same time, the power of suggestion, right? I mean, if you have like somebody with a strong personality and they're easy to convince, somebody who,
Yeah. No, I've met people like that where they have like a reality distortion field.
Yeah.
When they're talking to you, you're like, oh, and you're buying everything, and then they leave, and you're like shaking your head, thinking, "The fuck is wrong with me? That's bullshit." Right?
They're called energy vampires. No.
Yeah, but when they're standing there and they're telling you the stuff, you're like, "Oh yeah, they exude like a reality distortion field."
Yeah.
They can tell you shit and you buy it, but the minute they walk away, you're like, "What? No, that's crazy." But I've met people like that, so they absolutely do exist.
Yeah, I remember, I know this one woman. She owns a fairly famous location that's supposedly haunted, if you will.
Hello, did we lose you?
I think we lost Steve.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I know he was having some power issues before.
Oh, shit. Maybe he is there, but it's a case of Pareidolia.
Yeah. He thinks he's there, but he's not really there.
He thinks he's there, but he's not there. Yeah, no, he was messaging me earlier saying that the show might not go on because of the power outages that he was experiencing, but luckily they came back on just before it started. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully he'll flip a switch or plug the power that he inadvertently kicked out with his foot under the desk back in, and things will spring to life at any moment.
Yeah, it could be just the microphone too. I know he's had some issues with the mic as well.
Looks like he's still online, but maybe it's a mic issue then.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pareidolia, man, it's a trippy subject. What's your take on it, dude? It is real to an extent, but I think it all boils down to your perception, right? The way you view it.
Some people get easily influenced. So I mean, in the cases of some individuals who are basically followers as opposed to leaders in that sense.
Yeah,
I can kind of see how that can have an effect. Like if someone comes up to you and says, oh, this is what it is, and you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. They'll just agree to it.
Do you mean like a kind of like a charismatic kind of person who can kind of sway your point of view, or like?
Well, there's that aspect of it too, but there's also the aspect of people who are just gullible, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
Don't believe anything anyone says to them.
Uh-huh.
So in that sense, yeah, I can see that playing a big factor.
So I know that you guys are heavily into the paranormal and ghost hunting and the like. Do you go to like ghost meetups and stuff, or paranormal meetups where you meet?
I used to a long time ago. I've gone to a couple of them. I haven't gone to one in a long time actually, but I have gone to them in the past. Yes.
Well, let me ask you from your memory then, from going there and meeting new people who are obviously interested in the subject. Was there a gullibility factor? Were there people there who would just you could say any fucking thing and they would buy it immediately?
All the time.
Hey, Steve's back.
Hey, he's back.
All the time.
There are people like that for sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's a huge problem with trying to weed through what is reality and what is just entertainment, if you will.
Right.
People will sit there and their Bible is a TV show.
Sure.
Their belief system is built on what they learned from those TV shows or whatever.
Yeah.
And they carry it on into, I want to do this for not a living or a hobby, whatever else, but they take everything as if it was, the 10 Commandments of ghost hunting, if you will. And
I'm Zach Bagans, and this,
and
pictures.
Yeah, and not realizing, there's so much when it comes to this. It's not. Most people, it's to look for ghosts. For me, it's not looking for ghosts. It's looking to explain the explainable.
Well, that leads into something that I find very, very interesting. So, and you guys are the perfect people to ask this question to. So, ghost hunters or paranormal enthusiasts, you're out there, you're visiting supposedly haunted locations. You're doing overnight vigils. Sometimes you have phenomena. Most of the times you don't. But what's the why do you do this? Is it because of the thrill, because getting scared can be quite intoxicating, or is it for the genuine quest of trying to figure this shit out?
It's never been.
I don't know.
It's never been about the thrill. That's the thing that a lot of people sort of get muddied down with getting into doing this. There's a lot of fly-by-nights thrill seekers. Where me, it's always wanting to know exactly what is going on. I genuinely would like to know what's going on. And always have. I know there's something going on. It's a matter of trying to patch into that and trying to figure out exactly what that is.
So genuinely trying to figure out, sorry, let me rephrase that. Genuinely trying to understand or know what's going on. What if you found out what was going on, but it contradicted your belief system or your worldview? What would you do?
I'd be fucked up. No, it comes down to something. I can't remember who said this, but their theory was that when it came to the paranormal, when it came to trying to understand what might be going on or what exactly is going on, it'll never happen because we're kept in a cage or in a box, and we're being fed things that we're buying into and keeping us busy.
You're getting a little conspiratorial. I like it. Keep going.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the paranormal, that's conspiracy on a high level, right? I mean, people just don't, sort of section that in with the paranormal as opposed to conspiracy theories. But I mean, let's face it, there's tons of conspiracy theories when it comes to the paranormal. But I mean, the same could be said for life itself, for society itself.
Right. I
mean, when you look at you look at the physical world, and then you look at the metaphysical world.
Well, think of it this way. Let's just imagine that you are a devout Christian. Somebody who lives and breathes Christianity. It's a huge part of your life. It's 90+% of your existence on earth. Everything you do every day involves some kind of Christian doctrine. Mm-hmm. And let's just say that one day you discover 100% truth, that it's all of it, not just some of it, not a little bit, but all of it is absolute nonsense. How would you react?
I'm happy I found the answer.
No, I'll tell you how you'd react.
I'd be pissed off.
You'd be pissed. You'd be angry. You'd fight against it. You'd dismiss it.
Yeah.
You'd call it bullshit. You'd say it's lies. And you'd soldier on believing your personal truth.
But I mean, look at it this way too, Gareth. Yeah, I mean, you look at and again, taking the sort of the Christian sort of stance on thing, and the religion stance on the paranormal. And that's the problem with it. People looking into it or investigating it, researching it. For the most part, is the ideology. How much religion plays into how you think it plays out or how you want it to play out. The afterlife. It's always the afterlife.
Of course, yeah.
And that's the problem that I think a lot of people have. And my way of looking at this is, you got to think outside that box when you're looking at this. You can't simply think that, what you're dealing with is the afterlife. It could be anything else. It could be it could be a parallel universe.
We're all indoctrinated. Okay?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Man, woman, and child alive today
from day one
is indoctrinated into a belief system on how they perceive reality to function.
Exactly.
And some of it might be accurate, some of it might be bullshit. So, and pick and choose, but. Everyone is indoctrinated. And you mentioned the afterlife, right?
Yeah.
Most thoughts on the afterlife come from religious doctrine.
Yep.
What if we're already in the afterlife? What if we died in another reality and here we are?
Or how about better yet? How about if we're in purgatory waiting for real life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, life as we live it's very peaks and valleys, right? It's enormous joy and happiness and tons of pain and misery and horror. I mean, every person on earth experiences those feelings at certain points in their lives. Yep. They're exhilaratingly happy and depressed, and they deal with horror and tragedy and loss and joy and love. Everyone deals with those things, ups and downs. There's no consistency. So maybe we are in purgatory. Mm-hmm. Maybe we died, and now we're in this kind of limbo, waiting to go on to the super cool place where we can have a good time.
if you listen to, now I'm almost certain, I'm not entirely sure, but I remember ITC is a research facility that has been doing a lot of work in the EVP realm for years. And their claims, and again, these are only claims. Is it real? We don't know. But these are claims that they're making, that they have several recordings of conversations with a scientist who was a part of the team who had passed away and had crossed over, if you will, or whatever, and they had made contact with this particular scientist on the other side, if you will. And that scientist was telling them that life begins after, real life begins after you pass through.
Right.
So after you die, you pass through to the real life. That we're actually, what we're living right now is an actual purgatory, if you will, like a waiting area.
We're in the waiting room.
We're in the waiting room for real life.
Uh-huh.
And you could perceive that many different ways, but and I'm saying to myself, when you look into this, when you look at the paranormal, when you study it, when you research it, whatever, you have to throw out everything that we might know about this, because it's not right.
Yeah,
it's not.
I would agree. One of the first things I on this path many years ago is when I started to think or realize, because most people, when they think about ghosts and the paranormal, they think, it's a dead guy. It's the soul of a dead person, or a dead thing, or whatever, Mr. Johnson died in this room. His spirit occasionally, we only hear these stories. But while I know that paranormal phenomena is real, I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that it's the souls of the dead.
Yeah.
I think something else is going on here, something far stranger than just the simplistic notion that Joe Blow died and he's haunting this room.
And obviously that's the major reason why, if you will, science has a hard time explaining what happens.
Well, science has a hard time with the paranormal for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
One, because the paranormal phenomena is so rare and elusive, it doesn't fit the scientific method.
No.
It's not repeatable. You can't take it into a lab and have it repeat itself and then do experiments to fit your hypothesis. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. It's impossible, because it's very random. You could go to a supposedly haunted location and have amazing phenomena for 3 days, and then nothing for 50 years. There's no rhyme or reason to the activity, so it's very difficult for science or traditional science to lock it down, even though it's real.
And that is something that I preach on a regular basis. When you pointed out, going into a location and it being different all the time, and to truly understand what is going on. If you will, the paranormal phenomenon, if any, in that area is, you can't judge it upon one visitation.
No.
You need to have several, maybe over weeks, maybe over months, years, whatever. Right? You can't truly understand a location after one visitation.
Uh-huh. No, I would agree. You cannot. It is very rare. I think I've told the story on this show or maybe on Mindset, that I was unlucky enough or fortunate enough to grow up in a house that some very strange things happened. But it was it was very sporadic. It was very random. stuff would happen for like a week or two, and then we'd have a couple of years where nothing would happen. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's very random.
What do you think? What do you think if you were somebody came up to you and said, "Look at Gareth, what do you think is going on?" I mean, what is your theory? What is your leading theory?
Oh man,
on paranormal phenomena.
That's a tough question, but I think it has to do with how we perceive reality. Excuse me. Because I don't think we even know what reality is.
Exactly.
We don't even know when we look around. Like I'm talking to you right now, okay, and I see my microphone, I see my computer monitor, I see my hands, my keyboard.
Tangibility.
Yeah, but I'm experiencing reality through 5 senses. Okay?
Yes.
5 senses is what I'm experiencing with.
Mm-hmm.
But these 5 senses are just certain parts of the brain. You can stimulate the brain to recreate these 5 senses. So who's to say I'm not a fucking brain in a jar somewhere? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And someone just poking with an electrode. Okay, he's talking on nocturnal frequencies. Poke section B-A-B beep. Okay, I mean, how we don't know these things, right? It's just electrical impulses in the brain which gives us our view of how we perceive reality. But I think what we're looking at here is a much larger reality, but our perception is very limited.
And that's where the metaphysical comes into play.
I've often described it as like one of these old medieval tapestries, these huge, intricate needlework. They used to hang them on the walls of castles. They used to be enormous, and they'd be depicting all kinds of battles and scenes and so on. And if you imagine one of those huge tapestries hanging on the wall, and if you think of that huge tapestry as reality, and our perception of that huge tapestry is just a couple of little threads in the left-hand corner.
Exactly. I mean, your chunk of it is what you experienced yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Where again, you look at say you have 4 other people in the room with you that are looking at that tapestry, and they're looking at it an entirely different way because they didn't experience what you didn't experience, or what and their quarters on the top quarter of the tapestry or whatever, the 3 events or whatever that you have no idea about. It's
the things that are undeniable though are the different kinds of hauntings. There's the residual, which is the same thing. You guys know same shit.
Yeah.
You know stuff. Yeah. But the ones that really, 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 really fascinate me are the intelligent hauntings.
Yes,
where apparently intelligent things are being done. That speaks to me, and that really, really pushes my buttons to start thinking about, like, what the hell is going on here.
Well, there's nothing more satisfying when you look into this realm on a regular basis. There's nothing more satisfying than getting a piece of, and I hate saying evidence, findings, whatever. I hate saying evidence because we simply don't know. But I mean, when you have a finding that is, in response, that seems intelligent. You ask a question that may be an EVP, audio, whatever, and you ask a question, and all of a sudden you have this clear-cut answer. Okay, that's not a stray, radio wave or cell, whatever. They're
reacting to you.
It's reacting to you.
They're aware of you, and it's specifically aimed.
Yes.
But what's going on here? Is it an external force communing with you, or is it your mind interacting with reality and fooling you?
And again, that's the way I look at this as a whole. I take myself out of that traditional box, if you will, that most people that were, it's ingrained in our brain to think that, it's always the afterlife that we're dealing with, when I really simply don't believe that. I don't believe that, and I don't look at it that way. I look at it like it could possibly be anything. It could be, I mean, you look at science and how they've proven the fact of multiverses.
Well, here's something I can throw out there, which is very strange and very bizarre, but it ties UFOs and ghosts together.
Yeah, and there's been a few times there's been a few things, but go ahead. Yes. Yeah,
like I'm sure you're aware of the alien abduction phenomena.
Yes.
But there's been multiple, maybe hundreds, if not thousands, of reported cases of people of abductees, people who are regularly taken by these creatures on craft, who encounter dead loved ones. Like they'll witness an alien being with, Uncle Joe who died 2 weeks ago.
Now I feel like I'm in an episode of The X-Files. No, yeah, no, yeah. But sort of adding to that, you look at UFOs and obviously you have the ongoing saga of the extraterrestrials, if you will, the aliens, the greys, and the so-ons.
Sure, but that's just one. There's they call it the ETH, right?
Sure,
the extraterrestrial hypothesis.
But are those our ghosts?
Well, there's many theories that they're that they're us from the future, right?
Yeah.
Like if we evolved from apes, maybe we're going to evolve into them, and 10,000 years from now, or 1,000,000 years from now, we're coming back to visit ourselves as we look now. Like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, right? These little gray aliens with the big black eyes. They might be the human race 1,000,000 years from now that have created the technology to come back and visit us and check on our gene pool as to how we're experiencing reality today. There's a million possibilities. There's extraterrestrials, ultra-dimensionals, ultra-terrestrials, many, many, many different theories and or ideas. Any of them could be true, or they could all be false.
Well, let me ask you. Sorry.
All we know is that the phenomena is real.
Let me ask you, do you really buy into the whole scenario that we evolved from apes?
Some people, I do certainly believe that.
Yeah. But when you look at it from, humans supposedly, the theory is that we evolved from apes. But look at other animals. For a deer. What did a deer evolve from?
It's not a theory though. It's a scientific fact.
Okay. And
the thing that makes things confusing is that we're thinking, well, monkeys have been around for a while. Are they gonna turn into us?
Yeah.
Like, no, it's very different. Evolution happens. It doesn't happen, overnight. It happens over millions and millions of years. It's not like next week a monkey's gonna, start to, hey guys, how's it going?
Okay, Dr. Evil.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. It takes millions and millions of years for evolution to happen, and it's happening all around. It's happening to humanity now. It's happening to birds, to dolphins. We're all continually evolving. As our environment changes, we adapt to suit our environment, which is what white people are like that. Why do we have white people? Why do we have black people? Why do we have Asian people? We have different breeds of humans because they have evolved to suit the environment that they live in.
Yes. When are we going to lose our baby toe?
Actually, I lost mine this morning. Have you seen it? No, who knows? Maybe in a million years it'll be gone, or not. Who knows?
Yeah, and again, anything's possible in that scenario. Yeah, I mean that is certainly a possibility that these extraterrestrials, these aliens with the big black eyes, are us from the future, millions of years in the future. Perhaps there's not much light. The sun died, the star died, and there's not much light left, and our eyes evolved into growing bigger, and
that's a possibility. And another possibility is that they're wearing some kind of goggles or glasses.
That too, yeah. It's a skin suit. It's not. They don't really look like that. They just want to.
It's totally possible. Man.
Exactly.
The speculation game can go on and on. All we know is that these things do happen. We just can't figure them out.
Let me ask you. What it could be under the I guess that realm, or any realm within this wonderful world of the unknown that we love to explore.
Yeah.
Name an event that went down that just totally enthralls you, that fascinates you to the ends of the world, to the fact that it to this point it's still not explained.
Well, there's one you said that, and a particular ghost case popped into my head, which I became aware of in the early 1990s, about 1993, 1994. You guys might be familiar with this. I don't know. It's called the Ghost Rider case.
No, I'm not sure if I am.
No.
So there's a house in L.A. somewhere, and I have not been able to figure out where the fuck it is, because I'd love to. But these two guys moved into the house in like 1989, 1990. And they would always get the impression that they were being watched. That there was weird stuff, cold spots, being watched, standard ghost deal. And at the time, they had a Polaroid camera, and they started taking photographs around the house, and they would get a strange mist in the Polaroid film. And they started asking questions to the air and then snapping a photograph.
Oh, yes. Yes, I am familiar with this. Okay, go on. Sorry.
And they would get responses to their questions written in like a mist-like font on the Polaroid film.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And they called in Kerry Gaynor, who was famous from the Entity case in the mid-'70s, and Barry Taff were the principal investigators on the Entity. I don't know if you remember that movie, The Entity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They were the principal investigators on the real Entity case, and they called Barry and Kerry Gaynor went there and stayed there for a couple of weeks with his team and investigated the case thoroughly. In other words, they would bring in their own Polaroid camera,
and the same thing was happening
with sealed film, like that could not be tampered with. If it was tampered with, they'd know. And they got the same phenomena on the sealed film.
I remember this. Yeah,
I found this completely fascinating, and it just vanished off the planet. Nobody talked about it. I would search the internet. It'd be crickets. Nobody would know nothing about it, which meant to me that something was going on there. Because if it was bullshit, you'd get a ton of people saying, they're full of shit, they're making it up. Or the fact that it just vanished and no one was talking about it, it kind of lends credence to it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. That and as soon as you mentioned the Polaroids and stuff like that, yeah, I'm like, okay, I remember exactly.
And this case has always fascinated me. And a book came out about 5 years ago that touched on it a little bit, but we've never had the full story as to what really happened with this case.
Yeah, it's certainly very fascinating. Like, the photographs are just so eerie.
Very much so, yes.
Very, very eerie. You can't really explain them until you actually see them for yourselves.
Mm-hmm. I think if you Google them,
yeah, you can see them. I know. I remember looking at them on Google.
So dear listeners, fire up Google and type in Ghostwriter photos, and I'm sure you'll find something to unnerve you on this dark and stormy night.
And this is and again, this is a Polaroid. This isn't digital. This is a Polaroid.
Polaroid film. Yeah.
Instant camera.
Exactly.
Instant photo. And they were snapping pictures, and these mysterious
so
writings would come up, and you're like, wow.
Think about this, right? Step by step, okay? You're in the house. A paranormal investigator prepares a Polaroid Instamatic camera with a fresh cartridge of Polaroid film, seals up the opening to the film compartment. So if it's opened, you can tell. Mm-hmm. Gives this camera to the owner of the house, and while he's watching him, he asks a question, takes a photograph. The photograph is ejected from the camera, and immediately has an answer to his question on the film.
If only I were able to have an experience like that.
And now I'm thinking either these guys should be working in Vegas as the world's greatest magicians, or something's going on there. We're talking
about something very the furthest thing from, except for the camera itself, electrical.
Yep, it was a chemical reaction.
Chemical reaction. So obviously something is happening within the environment. Something is going on,
right,
that is wreaking havoc on the chemicals within that camera.
So they would start taking pictures and asking questions, and the answers to their questions would appear in Latin.
Yeah.
And they would have to, they went and they purchased a Latin phrase book or a Latin dictionary or whatever the fuck, where they would go through and decipher or decode or translate, rather, is a better word, translate the responses on the film. Because the answers that would come out, they wouldn't come out in English, they'd come out in Latin.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I totally forgot about that story, and I'm glad you.
It's a great one.
Yeah, mentioned that.
Google it. If you go to YouTube, there's probably a video or some shit up there from the early '90s that you could watch and be blown away by.
Wasn't there a short documentary on it as well? Was there not? I'm almost certain there was a short documentary, and that's. Sorry?
They showed up initially on, remember that old TV show Sightings?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They were on that.
Yeah.
And like that and then like 10 years later they showed up on some late night TV show where they were still experiencing the phenomenon like 10 years later, and that was it.
And nothing.
No publicity. And now you figure if these guys were hoaxing it, right?
Oh, they'd run with it.
But if they were hoaxing it, it's like, well, what's their angle, right? Are they got a book deal, a movie deal? What's going on here? What's the angle they're working if they're hoaxing it?
Well, it's sort of like do you remember the Dibbit box?
Yeah.
Sort of like that.
Guys, they've dropped off the planet.
I know.
There's no. They're not making millions of dollars. They're not seeking publicity. It's just gone.
Yeah, It's really, really strange. And, something like this is just so unusual. You figure, if they really wanted to, have that angle, or they can make shitloads of money.
Sure, of course.
I mean, sell the story to a major studio or writer or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But nothing like it, yeah.
Which for me just adds credence to it. Something's going on.
Now,
there.
what do you think? Do you think it might be the location, or do you think it might be the person? That might be the conduit.
That's a tough one. That's it could go either way. It's difficult to say. It might be the environment. It might be the person that's living there. I really don't know.
Like,
It be a mixture of both. Maybe the person is the catalyst that awakened whatever was there. I don't know.
I mean, it'd be interesting to know if you were able to go into this location and snap pictures and have the same thing happen, or not.
Well, but once again, as we were saying earlier, it defies the scientific method, right? It's very, very random.
Yeah.
You might go there with a shit ton of Polaroids and just take a picture of a wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You don't know, right? You don't know when or if it's going to happen.
It's a fascinating story. And yeah, we're pretty much out of time here.
What? No, say it. Oh.
Yeah. It always takes. This is why we used to like the BTR days, because in the beginning we were able to go on for 3-4 hours and have these conversations, these discussions into all these areas that were just.
Yeah.
You sat there and you listen to it again and you go, wow, it's mind blowing, the stuff that pulled out and thrown out there.
It's a trip. I mean, when sometimes when I'm doing my the Mindset podcast, usually each show is usually around 2 hours.
Yeah.
But sometimes we've done 3-hour shows.
Yeah.
And we could do another 3 hours. We could do like a 6-hour show, but it's just not practical. But you really could just go on and on.
You could. I mean, especially. That's the case all the time. You have like a base sort of scenario, topic, or whatever else to feed upon, and just go from there. Because I mean, there's so many ways that it can just flow, and you're going, well, let's talk about this, because that's fascinating. Because I mean, you brought up this story, like I asked you, I said, okay, well, what paranormal topic or whatever within the realm that fascinates you to the point where you're just baffled, and of course that comes out. And initially, obviously, when you said the ghost story, I don't remember this, and then when you got more into it, it's like, okay, yeah, I definitely remember.
Yes, it really is. I wish somebody would dig a little deeper, or if I had the time or the inclination, maybe I should dig a little deeper. I mean, it's here in LA, but it's something that's always stuck with me since I first heard about it in the early 90s. And the fact that it never exploded into this big media sensation, or books or movies or TV shows, it just kind of went away.
Yeah,
really makes me think that there might have been something to it.
Yeah, exactly. Fascinating story, and again, fascinating period. It's just too short. It always is. And Gareth, thank you again. Get out. We need to get out about the Mindset Central and all that kind of stuff. Let people know about it.
Yeah, if you like what you've heard this evening and you want to hear more, shoot over to mindsetcentral.com. I've just relaunched my podcasting extravaganzas after a year and a half of slumber. I'm back and doing some great shows. Every Sunday there's a Mindset podcast. Every Wednesday there is a Paratalk where we discuss all things strange.
Awesome, and thank you for joining us again. Dark discussions continue next week for our final show of 2018. Our final show of 2018 before we go into our annual Christmas hiatus. We usually end things until first
January,
first couple weeks in January, and then we start back up. But let everyone enjoy their holidays, and we're back in January. But yeah, things continue next Sunday night. Becky Ray will be joining us next week, and obviously Gareth, if you can make it, be great to have you back on.
I would love to be back on, and I'll give it my best shot.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for joining us, my friend.
Thank you. Anytime. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Great. It really turned out to be pretty, interesting, especially in the last little bit. And it usually turns out that way, right?
It does. Yeah.
It really turns out to be a great conversation. That's why, why we like doing the dark discussions. But I mean, we will be back next Sunday night to continue it. And who knows, we might continue on with this or something else. That's the beauty of dark discussions. Thank you for tuning in this evening. And again, thank you for our good friend Gareth Davies for joining us. And hopefully he'll be able to make it out next Sunday night for the finale of, the show until 2019. Thanks everyone for tuning in. You've listened to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And we'll see you all out next Sunday night. Tune in then. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
You are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his satanic assistant, Alex Montini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
You've tuned into Nocturnal Frequency Radio with your hosts,